Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, we get the right guests, and we question them with relevant queries. But tonight we have a different show for you with an editorial, really an analysis of the state of play of the main tickets. So we know the NDC will be led by John Dramani Mahama. We know the NPP will be led by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. We also know the Butterfly Movement will be led by Alan Kyerematen. Other parties are getting their tickets in place. But who would be the running mates? It's a big, big debate. And with 10 months to go, we will be looking at the leading contenders to back the leading political figures for the two leading parties. Stay with us. So tonight we're going into the issue of who will partner the leading political party flag bearers. We do know that the NPP chose Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia a few weeks ago, and indeed last week he gave his main policy message, largely focused on the economy. Dr. Bawumia himself emerged into our political scene in August 2008 when Nana Akufo-Addo announced him. Till then, only those of us in business media knew him as one of the deputy governors of the central bank. But in 16 years, he's become this technopole with a very, very interesting outlook to his politics and his economics. So tonight we're looking at first the NDC, because John Mahama has been the NDC candidate for a while now, and the person who partnered him is still here. But he has not officially announced that she will be the running mate, although there have been different noises. So what we're doing tonight is we're going to give you what we call the front runners to lead or to partner the flag bearers. Then we'll look at what we call the main contenders, and then we'll also throw in some wild cards. We are reliably informed that the NDC flag bearer would announce his choice either by end of February or latest early March. So who are the main characters? Before I get there, the Daily Graphic this morning chose to lead with this story. NDC running mate heats up. Nana Opoku-Agyeman leads pack. Toby Apede's name pops up. So now this is interesting because there are a lot of things to talk about this week. And we have seen a group issue a statement about Toby Apede. In fact, the group have come up with about 9 points that they consider essential. 12 points, by the way, that they think the NDC flag bearer should look out for in choosing a running mate. I'm just going to read out some of the criteria they put out. They say, for example, that the person should appeal to the confidence of the development partners and donors. The person should one who matches opponents, should have public trust, should have chemistry with the flag bearer, should be independent-minded, analytical, lots of things. And they went round and they basically feel this man is their choice. The group is called the Changemakers Forum, and a statement they put out was signed by one Ivan Chidi Akrobotu. So today, the 12th of February, this is the leading newspaper's front page story written by my good friend Suleiman Mustafa. Now, what is clear is that Nana Opoku-Agyeman is the incumbent, if you like, running mate. But this is not necessarily the front runner to compete with her. So this is what we've done. Professor Jane is the front runner, and we'll explain why. Although there are issues there, because if somebody was your running mate in 2020, it's almost 4 years since you chose her. If she's going to partner you, we should know by now. So clearly, you are not sure, right? If you were sure, because don't forget, when these parties are in opposition, they choose their candidates very early. And we've known John Mahama will lead the NDC for at least a year now. So why hasn't Jane been announced? We'll get into that. Now, there are a number of contenders. I just put 2 here. I think there are about 3 or 4. Some people also think that the NDC is sort of waiting to get a sense of what the NPP will do, which is why Dr. Dufour's name keeps coming up. So he really ran against Mahama. He didn't actually end up contesting because he sort of withdrew the last day. But we've seen him campaign with Mahama across the Ashanti region. So he's back in the NDC fold. And this is a former governor under the Rawlings government and a former finance minister under Mills. Big, big businessman. I'll come to him shortly. Julius Debra's name keeps coming up from, it's funny, Eastern Regional Minister, or Greater Accra Regional Minister. All right, he's from the Eastern region, rose through the ranks, tourism minister, local government minister, ended up as chief of staff. And some are wondering, very close to Mahama. If you come back to power with your chief of staff, what will you do? Will you be an ambassador? Will you be a minister? So like the only position is a vice president. So that's why the name came up. Now, we'll discuss Toby Afede too, because there's a strong view that the NDC must go outside the pool of known politicians and choose this traditional leader. Although he has a constitutional barrier, but the people who say they support him are telling us that if he's chosen, he will abdicate because he's the Togbe Afede the 14th, the Agbogbomefia of the Asogli state. He's also a very astute businessman, known for Africa World Airlines, SAS, World Trade Center, and all those things. So the constitutional provision is very clear. A chief cannot take part in active politics. But let's make some progress. So as I said, the graphic leads to this story. And in this story, they also mention names, very interesting names. They mention people like Eric Opoku. He's the MP for Esunafo South. He's the NDC spokesperson for Agric. Indeed, last week, Umar Sanda interviewed him on Cocoa Board. He's quite an articulate guy. And Eric is an interesting one because he's from BA. Esunafo South is actually Ahafo, right? His name keeps coming up. Don't forget that the way this thing happens, as the names keep popping up, they gain some credence. So his name has been strongly in the list. So I'll add him to the contenders in my top 3. But there's an interesting name I saw, Nathan Kofi Boakye as well. He was spotted at an NDC walk with Ashanti. I mean, a lot of people, before Dan Parry came, I would say Kofi Boakye was your main policeman, in the NPP years. If they say a policeman's policeman, that's Kofi Boakye. Lectures, great lawyer. I mean, he's seen to be quite easy to relate with as well. So he was seen at an NDC function, and his name has come up as well. Then there are a few other names. So, but let me just do the Jane question. So a lot of people are surprised that she's above 70 because she doesn't really look it, which is good on her. Because we know that she has grown kids. Major public thing, most of you do not know that she used to host a show on Radio Gold, and this is in Kwame Nahoi's book. She used to be a radio show host on Radio Gold many, many years. And then, of course, VC of UCC. Actually, the first female vice-chancellor of a university in Ghana. So that is an achievement for her. Education minister, worked with Okujetua Blackwell as her deputy. This is in the Mahama years now. Education minister. And then was chosen as the vice presidential candidate or the person to support the ticket. Now, we think that her pros are very easy to see. Look, this is an experienced ticket. They came in 2020, they were rejected, but they have learned, she probably have learned what to do and what not to do. There's a big question about her spark. People are asking, where's the spark? She doesn't seem to generate a spark, but people seem to think that's also an advantageous thing in a different way. There's a big question about Central Region because Central Region hardly votes for, probably apart from the second round of the 2008 election where they went strongly for males. Central Region doesn't really, partly because the region itself is like the coastal are pure Fantis, then there's the Agona, there's the Denchira part, there's even Asin, Breman, a lot of those have Ashanti influences, so it's not a monolithic region that votes for one person. It's not like Ashanti or Volta, right? So, and NDC has been working with Central. Mills was, in fact, Konkensin Aka, right? The bow-tie man for Rawlings. He's a Futu, but Central Region, okay? We are Guans. Then you have Mills himself, a Fanti. Then you've had Pakwesi and Misata as well. So the NDC has really persisted with the Central Region. And there's a strong school of thought in NDC that, look, this Central Region thing is not helping. Be that as it may, if you look at the way the MPP is in the Central Region, Japan did very well in the primaries. Some people in NDC think that if you maintain Jenan or Pokwa Central could go strongly for that. There's also a strong gender argument. I think President Mahama's aide, what's her name? Joyce Ba Mukhtari at a function recently said the NDC should choose a woman. So everybody knew she was talking about this person. Now, Joyce Ba Mukhtari is quite close to Mahama. So we don't know if she was sort of giving us a sounding of what Mahama would do. But the gender argument, the advocates, some people think is healthy for the ticket. And somehow, because Mahama is a one-term president, in terms of the fact that he's going to have only 4 years, there's a view that whoever he chooses as his running mate is also choosing his successor in a way. All right, but she's 72. All right, so if they win, she's probably 73 by then. She does 4 years, 77. So do you really want somebody at that age? We don't know. Well, Nanado shows us it's possible. We don't really know. Right? But I think the biggest thing in the NDC is this. She's a safe choice. Why I say a safe choice? Because of all the uncertainties around the NPP and Bawumia, some people in the NDC say, why do you rock the boat? Don't give anybody a talking point. Just keep the ticket. They've worked together for 4 years. They didn't win, but they'll do better. She wasn't given the face. She didn't get the same level of coverage Mahama got. So do better. So basically, even if she didn't bring in too many votes, although there's a strong view, I've read articles where, for example, we're told that prior to 2020, NDC had only 4 seats in Central Region. The seats increased to 13. Some people attribute that to her. We don't know. NDC's votes in Central Region in the 2016 election about 405,000. It increased to 524,000. You can attribute that to her. So there's a whole discussion around whether she brought anything to the ticket. But I think the strongest issue is the fact that she's a safe choice. Meaning that you don't want controversy. NPP is already controversial with Kennedy. Is it the running mate who's going to be chosen? All those issues. Is it Napo? Is it Duchum? Why do you give media something to talk about? Just maintain Jenan Opokwa Jiman so that you don't have any problems, right? So the view in the NDC for those who support her are that she's they don't rock the boat. But people are saying, look, NPP has a new candidate. It's called Bawumia. Bawumia is untested at the presidential level, but he could cause a stir because he's going to split Northern votes. And if he gets a good running mate, NPP usually lose elections by razor-thin margins. In fact, they came closer to breaking the 8 in 2008. Akufo-Addo almost won that election. So NDC may need a spark. And they're saying, look, she doesn't have a spark. She's not very articulate. Her communications are not that great, right? And there's nothing fresh about her, you know. If Mahama is a known horse from whatever, and Mahama has been there for long, if you want a ticket that's win some, why don't you bring somebody from outside, a maverick? And the other issue is that the 2024 election is about the economy. In fact, if you look at Bawumia's speech, probably 60% of what he said was economy. So it's going to be an economy thing. Is he really your economy person? Mahama is not really an economy guy. So why do you want to bring 2 non-economists to come and fight an economic election? You see the arguments against her, all right? Where is the freshness? Where is the economic strength? So those are the things that militate against her candidature. And of course, the fact that if Mahama wanted to maintain her, he would probably have announced it by now, all right? So we don't know. Now, this name goes and comes. Now, the reason this name has come up again is a number of things. So, of course, 4 months ago, this wasn't an issue at all because the way the race went. But he's back in the fold. Mahama visited Ashanti and he was sat next to him. Very, very respected Ashanti guy. Former governor of the Bank of Ghana under Rawlings. Former finance minister under Mills. He has money. Even though he has banking challenges, his bank, Unibank and all of those things, Dr. Kwabena Dufour is still a very wealthy man. All right? And he can say, and you cannot doubt, that his understanding of the economy is more than most. For somebody who ran one of the biggest banks in Ghana, I think at the time his bank was the 2nd or 3rd largest bank of the local one. Governor, finance minister, this is an election on the economy. Why not? Of course, he's from the Ashanti region. Why not? Because the NPP is very clear. We've been told that the NPP is going to choose somebody from the Ashanti region. Why don't you choose a respected Ashanti to try and muddy the waters? NDC believes that if they get 25% Ashanti votes, they won the election. So why don't you bring Dr. Kwabena Dufour? All right? Age is not on his side, but that's even good for some people. Like, you know, Mahama to choose his successor, right? So if they win, he'll probably be 82 by the time they leave. So he's not going to even have the energy to be president. But ask Joe Biden. Okay? So money is on his side, his experience as well. That's the other thing. For somebody who's been governor, who's been finance minister, you can't doubt his experience. I've interviewed a guy. He has a very clear sense of how he sees the economy. Whether it's new or not is a different issue. Whether it will work now or not. But for somebody who's done the kind of work he's done, entrepreneur, business owner, governor, finance minister, you can't fault him. His Ashanti factor, right? Prempeh College guy. And an interesting pro as well. For Pastor Wengam, Pastor Wengam. There are a number of people who went to Assemblies of God. Pastor Wengam is the head of the church. You have the former Chief Justice, Georgina Wood, Assemblies of God strongly. Kwabena Dufour, Assemblies of God strongly. and of course John Mahama. So there's Assemblies of God connection. So maybe the Council of Assemblies of God can have a meeting and say, let's have a meeting of minds on this. Isn't it too old? I think that's the question most people are asking for a vice president. Look, you have a Dick Cheney, George Bush situation on our hand. The vice president can be older, but Mahama is more experienced because he's been president. President is tougher, right? Now, there are people who feel like, look, this guy, he's in court, all right? Unibank, Unicredit, and all those companies some of which were resolved. There are legal issues. So if you, it's like you are choosing an incumbent candidate. But of course, the NPP doesn't have that much time. All right, but who knows? What if they speed up the case? We don't know what will happen. So there are people who think this banking sector issue could affect him. And then, again, this could be a negative. Assemblies of God is just one of the Pentecostal, denominations. Indeed, the church religion issue is going to come up as well. And of course, there's no freshness there. But to the extent that this election will be an economic election, people feel if you put this man on the Mahama ticket, it gives us more economic weight. Because say what you want about Bawumia. Bawumia is an economist. All right? Yes, the NPP did not do well in the past 8 years. The economy is in a difficult situation. But Bawumia is an economist. All right? So if you want to match that ticket, and he's a new figure. So even though he's the vice president, there's a certain newness also. So it's neither here nor there. So does adding an economist to the Mahama ticket give it some weight, like a Miss Arthur did? That's the question. So that's Dr. Dufo for you. The other one that keeps coming up is Julius Debra. I mean, first time I saw this guy's poster, we were going to Basco in Suhum. This is early 2000s. To do our outreach for orphans. So this huge green billboard of a guy running for MP for Suhum, for MDs. I said, who is this guy? Because this was a time where you had the main Brian Champon versus Watuse, they call him, the other guy, contesting for MPP in Suhum, seriously. And this was the NDC guy. NDC would not win Suhum. But Julius Debra was there, rose in the Eastern region, later on became a regional minister, then a tourism minister, local government minister, and then chief of staff. I mean, his rise in the NDC has been phenomenal. Of course, he's been NDC for a long time. But in the past, under the Mahama years, when there was all this confusion about Bani and people were resigning, they needed somebody who, because at the time there was a lot of complaint about, Bagbin would say when they go to the Flagstaff House, they can't meet Mahama, complaints about Standogbe and co. They needed somebody who could unify the forces. And I think Julius Debra's greatest skill is his likability factor. Everybody is his friend. Very strong relations with everybody, right? In Ghana, if you're 57, you are young. Okay, so, I mean, this is the issue, right? So, think about it. Justin Trudeau, he became Prime Minister at 38. But in Ghana, Julius Debra is a young man. This is the problem we have in our country. But be that as it may, he's young, all right? And he's not divisive, all right? So, nobody feels threatened by Julius Debra. And that can be a very important skill to have in Ghana. So, in Ghana, people like you because they don't feel threatened. And as we'll see with other candidates, there are some candidates who are very good, but they rub people off on the wrong side. Ghanaians, they say he's a brother man. All right, so now the question though is, Eastern region running mate for NDC. Eastern region is not even the biggest, right? So what are you going to get? And Eastern region doesn't really differ from the NDC that much. And it's not even from one of the groups that votes for NDC. So I think it's a Kwewu man. All right, so what are you doing with the, and these things are important considerations for people. People look at the balance in region, north, south, geography, religion, and all that. So what is Julius Debra's base? I think that's the question. Because this is the same equation that you have people like Eric Opoku. Because Eric Opoku is from Bono Ahafo. It's Sunafo. It's a transition zone between the north and Ashanti. So people feel that there will be a lot of votes to be won there. They feel Eric Opoku quite articulate as well. So I put him in the same bracket. But Julius has sort of a lead because he was chief of staff. Now, chief of staff is arguably, indeed, in some circles, more powerful than a vice president. You could argue that Kufuor's chief of staff had more power than his vice president, and nobody would disagree with you, right? Although you can't say that about Bawumia and Frema. But to be chief of staff is a big position. So if Mahama wins the election, what would Julius Debra do? If you are able to bring him in your last 2 years to steady the ship, clearly he's somebody you can work with. The chemistry is there. And there are a lot of Mahama Julius Debra photos all over. It shows the chemistry. So, but this question is an interesting question, whether age will expose the cracks. By that I mean, you see, if Mahama makes a choice, he can either make a governance choice, somebody to work with me, or he will make like a political choice to win the election. So either he gets somebody to win or somebody to work with. Now, there's a lot of issues around post-Mahama for NDC. All right? Now, critics of Mahama say he hasn't thought about his successor properly. So if he wins the election, he has only 4 years. Now, if he doesn't pick his running mate well, the party could implode because there are so many people who are waiting to take over from him. And sometimes a choice of running mate quells that. Akufo-Addo came 2008. He chose Bawumia. People didn't know him. He stuck with him for 16 years. Now he's a candidate. So he made a choice for his successor. Even though he didn't say it, he chose a guy who was young enough, who would learn the job. And now Bawumia is the undisputed flag bearer of the NPP. Now some say, Mahama, why are you dithering? All these names we are bringing up, some of them are too old. What are you doing? You have only 4 years, right? So are you going to leave the party to implode if you are no longer there? And if you choose somebody like this who's young enough and you make that choice, are you not going to expose cracks because there are so many people also interested? So those are the questions with Julius, Deborah. But let's deal with the last in the list. This is the outside. I call it the outsider choice, right? I don't even know what word to use. Maybe like the wild card. The wild card. Because I think a month or so ago, some people from a group started sending emails like they think Togbe should become the running mate. He's quite a prolific writer. I think even last week, he wrote an article about the Bank of Ghana. Now, he's one of the people who's been arguing about our monetary policy, our inflation targeting. He has a lot of strong views. Now, why? Because this gentleman, together with Ken Ofori-Atta and Kelly Gajekpo, are the co-founders of Data Bank. Many people don't know this, right? They were in Yale together. They're good friends. And he is actually a financial economist. Founded Strategic African Securities, which is an investment bank. Chairman of the World Trade Center, chairman of Hearts of Oak, which is always good if you are NDC, or if you will be NDC. Founder of Sunon Asogli. You remember recently they wrote to the government, they give at least 300 to 500 megawatts of power. A strong player in the power sector. He partnered with the Chinese. Africa World Airlines, co-founder of those two. Africa World Airlines as well. So he's a businessman. So he's called James Akpo. Strong personality. All right. Some people see him as the maverick, strong economic hand to give Mahama that economic solidity, because 2024 is an economic election. And the people who support him, as I read for you earlier, gave us 12 reasons. 12 job creation, no baggage, inspiring the youth to work with chiefs and other social partners, media-friendly, disciplined, firm, but team player, analytical, all kinds of things. You can't argue with his economic credentials, right? It to build a power, to have Asogli, which is one of our important power plants. Africa World Airlines is probably the main local airline, all right? So there's a thing to be said. The main problem with Togbe is that he's a chief. Now, if you look at the Constitution, it's quite clear on what a chief can or cannot do. And I'm just going to read that for you quickly. So, the Constitution, Article 276 says, a chief shall not take part in active party politics. And any chief wishing to do so and seeking election to parliament shall abdicate his stool or skin. So that's point 1. So they talk about parliament. 2, notwithstanding clause 1 of this article and paragraph C of clause 3, a chief may be appointed to any public office for which he is otherwise qualified. So if vice president was by appointment, Togbe Afede would have easily made it. But he has to abdicate. He is the Agbogbo-Mefia of Asogli State. How easy is it for him to abdicate? Some of his people are saying, or people who are speaking purportedly for him, because we don't even know if they are his spokespeople. Of course, they call themselves the change makers forum. They claim he is ready to abdicate. He hasn't said that publicly, so we don't know. All right? But somebody said to me that vice president is a job that when you are offered, you say yes before you think. So we don't know. Now, the other possible pro is that if you look at the NPP and Ashanti, he's from the Volta region. There's a view that the Volta region has felt marginalized in the NDC since Rawlings left. So if you choose somebody strong from the region, you unite them to turn out. The thing with Volta, though, is that the turnout has not been low because of lack of interest, or more because of migration. Right? So a lot of the Volta in other regions, be that as it may, They feel it could galvanize the vote. He can also bring in money, because think about it, partners with the Chinese. He's building power plants all over. The last time we called his spokesperson, he was somewhere in Congo DR or Cameroon or something. So he has the international sort of breadth, all right? So that's Toby Afede. Question though is, apart from his constitutional barrier, can the NDC Hawks work with him? Because Toby Afede doesn't suffer fools gladly. He's a very straightforward guy. So if he's the vice president, you know, political parties have all these kind of people. He's going to clash with a lot of people. He may even clash with Mahama. He may even resign. You know, he's that straightforward. He's yes, he's no, he's no. So we don't know what he will do. Now, we have these wild cards that we've thrown in. Kwame Wadaku's name has been there throughout. Kwame Wadaku is like former CEO of Bost, you know, from a well-to-do family, the family that has Vanguard, Insurance, and the rest of it. From the Jabin area. Quite an interesting guy. When the whole Ashanti issue came up, his name keeps coming up. Kojo Bonsu also comes up, but somehow Kwame Wadaku's name appears to keep popping up, right? Will Mahama go with him? We don't know. Patrick Owa's name has come up a few times, but he's never really shown interest. But the thing with NDC and their track record is they brought Aka from a different party. They brought Mills, who wasn't a politician. So there's a view that NDC can do anything. Right? So they can go and bring Patrick Owa. Will he say yes? We don't know. But it's an interesting name. I've also seen those who are saying if you want to maintain a woman and you want to keep the central region, she's from the central region, she's now working with the UN, but there's a sense in which people feel she wraps people off on the wrong side. Although you can't question her competence because she was the Minister of Trade, Foreign Minister. So in terms of capacity, Hannah Tete is the former member of parliament, but the question is, will the NDC machinery be excited by her? And will she win over people from the other side? But in terms of competence, for these three, she's probably the most experienced politically. So those are the names. Then the other names, Sylvester Mensah's name is there. You know, we've seen Kojo Bonsu's name has come up. You know, we've seen Alex Mode. So Sylvester Mensah, former MP, former NHIA CEO, Volta and Greater Accra region. Kojo Bonsu, former mayor of Kumasi. His lobby groups keeps talking. Alex Mode, former CEO of MPA, GMPC as well. All these names are there, you know. So by end of February, we'll know. And what we are told, the top three, definitely Jinan Opoku-Agyeman is still the front runner. Strong case being made for Julius, strong case being made for Dufour, and an outsider chance for Toby Afede. This is the point of view. We're trying to analyze the potential candidates for running mate for the two leading political parties. When we come back, we'll jump into the NPP because that's a different situation. You have a fresh candidate who has to make a choice that is entirely up to him. Indeed, a few weeks ago, he asked the party to give him more time to think it through better. So clearly, there are many, many names in the hat for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. We'll take a closer look at the NPP contenders when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight, we're just taking a stroll through the main names, the main contenders, to partner the two leading flag bearers for now. So John Dramani Mahama has not yet announced his flag bearer. We are told he will do that later February or early March. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was to have announced it a few weeks ago. He asked the party for more time to consult, and the party has granted him that. So he just spoke last week, gave out his policy brief. And so what will he decide? Now, again, similar to NDC, we've grouped this. I think from the media coverage, it's very clear Napo is the front runner. Not necessarily in Bawumia's mind, but in the public domain. Because even this week, a group from the Volta region has come to say they want Napo. Last week, some group in Ashanti said they wanted Napo. He's the candidate with the most endorsements. All right. If you watch Dr. Bawumia's program carefully, almost every 15 minutes the camera will pan to him, and he's smiling. In fact, when he was entering, a whole entourage came to meet him. So clearly, he's liked in the party. In fact, I've spoken to people in NPP who say if they make a choice just to galvanize the party, if we're just choosing somebody for pure party popularity to sort of whip up interest in the grassroots, is Napo. Because he seems to have built that from his education ministry days to his energy ministry days. And he's an Ashanti royal as well, all right? So Napo is the front runner in our view. We have put 3 contenders here. MP for Bosomtwi and Education Minister Dr. Seyi Aduchum, he was on City Breakfast Show recently. Oseche Mensah Bonsu, I will explain why he's there. Because some people think Che Mensah, Charlie, his stock has fallen. But I will explain why he's there. More recently, Kwabena Agyapong names keeps coming up. Kwabena Agyapong's name keeps coming up. An interesting choice. And then this week, this is what we call the wild card. Just this week, I don't know whether it was the post he made, but there was a Facebook photo of, one of the first MPs to support Bawumia in this race was the MP for Nsawa Maduejiri. He's called Frank Anado-Mpre. Frank Anado-Mpre has stuck his neck out for Bawumia from the beginning, before anybody did. So he's one of main Bawumia people. He put some very interesting thing on his Facebook page, right? He says, "My prayer and wish." And we don't know what he's doing here, because, go back, Frank Anado-Mpre, are you saying he's praying for him, or is your prayer and wish that he partners him? All right. Now, this gentleman is on the National Cathedral Board, and so some issues came up, and he wrote back staunchly defending the way the cathedral, Dr. Obinus had written a letter, basically not happy with the way things were going, and his response was very serious. And he's a respected Church of Pentecost former, chairman. So I'll come back to him. He's the wild card, and they have the same height too. I'll come back to him later. So let's go to Napo. Why is Napo the front runner? So, Matthew Opoku Prempeh is how do I describe him? Even from tech, those who were his mates, he's always been a student leader. So he's, because an Ashanti royal, right? So he's a leader, right? Even when I was in Presec, most of my mates from Kumasi knew him by the name Napo. That's how, if you are in Kumasi, you know Napo. All right, there are a few people like that. All right, like the former mayor of Kumasi's son is also known. They call them by their first names. Nana Poku. She's very known in Ashanti. Now, he is the minister who oversaw, arguably, no, it's not arguing, Nanado's most successful policy is free education, right? I think it was his biggest campaign message and it's his biggest achievement. He was a minister who was given the job to oversee that. Now, he's a surgeon. So you think that you bring education. He's a surgeon. Surgery is high-level medicine, right? And he was given education and he delivered it well. So the energy ministry was not a demotion. Do you get my point? So the energy ministry was not like he said, no, Napo did his work as an education minister. Deliver free SHS. He didn't have regular relation with his deputy, Educhum, as we will later find out. Now he's been given energy, another complex ministry. All right? Those who know him say what they like about Napo is that he's decisive. So he knows how to get what he wants. So if, for example, they are not paying power producers, he has a way of working to make sure they are paid. Right? He moves with his heart on his sleeve. But that makes him controversial and sometimes divisive. All right? He's an Ashanti royal. I had analysis this week that, well, Akufo-Addo was an Ashanti royal. People don't want another Ashanti. Was an Achim royal. They don't want another royal to come in. I'm not sure. But there's a strong view that Menchia backs him. That's the view. Menchia is tuneful. They haven't come out to say yes or no. But that's a strong feeling. They've not come to deny it, by the way. He has strong political skills. So so one of the things politicians have is they are Napo loyalists. There are some politicians who are not even loyalists. There are people who swear by Napo. All right? There are some MPs. I don't want to mention all the names, but there are MPs we know who he worked with in the Ministry of Education who have risen. Right? So he's built a base. Which is why people say he's a strong person in party. He has people who, there's a newspaper that always writes about Napo. He's won too many awards to mention. All right? And as I said, a lot of the analysis is saying that if the NPP, because don't forget, after 8 years, there's a lot of apathy. If the NPP wants somebody to excite their base, they should choose him. But the question is, do you choose a vice president to just excite your base? Will your base be enough to win an election? One that's going to be this crucial. All right? A couple of issues have come up. Does he have cross-party appeal? All right? Some will say if it brings in Ashanti vote, they may not need cross-party appeal. But in the kind of election we are entering, you may need the middle class have really taken a position against the incumbent. Although they're also not necessarily excited with the NDC, a candidate with crossover appeal may convince them, which is why people like Cheddar are causing the sensation they're causing, because people are really tired of the NDC and the NPP. And so Cheddar's 150 billboards, his simple message is appealing to a lot of people. So some are saying, will Napo give you anything like that? Bawumia is already 16 years as a technocrat politician. Do you need another politician? Why don't you bring an outsider to help him? But Bawumia himself is not necessarily historically as steeped in the NPP. 16 years is not that deep if you look at the politics, whatever. Now, the other funny thing was Kennedy Japan, who ran against Bawumia and got 37% of the votes, recently said that the only way he'll campaign for the NPP is if they make Napo the running mate, which is a very funny thing to do. Because if you support somebody, and you don't forget, it was a very acrimonious race between Kennedy and Bawumia. So why should Bawumia's main opponent be suggesting his running mate for him? You know, if I'm Bawumia, what are you thinking? It's like, why? You've already come to take 37%. We don't even know what you are doing. Now you come to tell us, who the hell do you think you are? Do you get me? So it's like, so if I'm Napo, I'm not sure I'm happy with Kennedy's endorsement. It's like, why? Keep quiet. But of course, we've been told that there are people who have been suggesting that to make NPP come together, Bawumia should make Kennedy his running mate, which I don't really understand, but that's what people are saying. So we don't know if the Kennedy endorsement will hurt him, because if you're in the Bawumia team, you say, look, Doc, if you begin with the running mate, he will then eventually tell you who should be your ministers too. So let him know where he stands. So maybe it hasn't helped Napo. Now, the thing about Ghana is that, and I made this point when I came to Julius, in Ghana, being seen to be affable is good for your politics. People don't like people who are straightforward. So Napo, if you deal with Napo, he can say, look, I don't like what you did, or I like you. He's not like middle ground guy. Right? So some people are not comfortable with that. They are not comfortable with that because they feel he will, there are two views. Some people think he would alienate some people, he will cause enemies, and some people even think he will overshadow Bawumia. Some people even think so. They think he will, because, he's from a strong, Ashanti region, strong, and he's 55. So clearly, whatever happens, he will be the next guy. So he has people who don't like him. But we think he's the front runner. Because of these two things and that. Let's go to the next. So this gentleman is almost like the opposite in a way, because he was deputy to Napo. He was in the US, California. Akufo-Addo brought him. He's risen very fast. He's a bit like Julius Deborah. Risen very, very fast. Deputy minister. Education is the biggest portfolio in Ghana in terms of the size, probably except Agric, right? And he speaks very well. And even though he's very political, somehow he's seen as an outsider. So for some strange reason, people see Educho, like I was at an event for EdTech, education, and they sort of liked him because he speaks, he has this American way around him. He has the digital thing. He has the Bawumia digital thing that he does. People like him in terms of his flow, all right? So even though he'll be saying, we will not change, we will not review free SHS, people will be angry with him, but just for 2 days, he's still their darling, all right? So he doesn't rub people off on the wrong side. He's more a pleasant person kind of guy. He's also Ashanti from Bosomtwi. So even though he's not a royal from Menchia, he's Ashanti. And we've been told, two people said this, Joe Osewusu, Deputy Speaker, and Kejemfo have both said that NPP have decided that Bawumia's running mate should be an Ashanti, which is why we are sort of limiting this to the Ashantis. Now, Napo is a Christian, Bawumia is a Muslim. Now, some people feel that Educhum's Pentecostal Christian credentials will help him more. So if you want, because don't forget, in the latest census that was done, the group of charismatics and Pentecostals are now the largest group of the Christian group, followed by the Protestants before the Catholics. So now, Penteco-charismatics are a lot in Ghana, and he's a typical one. So some see that as an advantage. And he talks a lot about technology, digital, edtech, those kind of things, which Bawumia seems to also like. So it's like these two digital people will be working together, right? And then, as I said, even though he's been in politics for quite a while, he's seen as a fresh face for some reason, because he's risen very fast. Now, the problem is that, does he have the gravitas? All right? Some people think that the challenges of the education ministry are because he's not like his predecessor, who's a bit more forceful in terms of getting things done. That's the view people have about him. Relatively new. Bawumia himself may not necessarily be as steeped in the NPP, 16 years. Of course, vice president for 8 years, 7 years. But they feel you may need a stronger NPP roots person, and Educhu may not be the person, right? And then whether he's Mensia's choice. So those are the issues. Also, good age, 59, right? If you speak about articulation, I think it's one of the best though. He has this. So he came on CCTV to teach maths, which is nice. He also has this. If he rolls his arms, he's very easy to relate to, and he has good political skills. So people feel he'll bring more to Bawumia out from outside NPP. So he's like the main guy who will bring the non-NPP guys because of the way he is. So that's why he's like the second big contender. Now, this name has been there as he wanted to be president from 2008, right? But he's come up more recently because the people are saying that the way the Napo Educhum thing is going, in fact, the people consider even the challenges that Wontumi is facing to be part of the Napo Educhum issue, because don't forget that Wontumi started as the Bosomtwi chair of NPP. So he and Educhum are pretty close. And some people see all the issues around Mensia inviting him and all those things to be a play out of the Educhum Napo issue. Right? So they are saying if you choose Napo, you have a problem. If you choose Educhum, you have a problem. Choose somebody else who's very competent. Now, Kwabena Agyapong, no doubt. Now, what's Kwabena Agyapong strong? Look, if you know anything about politics in Ghana, Kwabena Agyapong has a solid personal story. His father was killed when he was like 19. Right? This is under the PNDC, early 80s. And he's sort of come out to say, I've forgiven everybody who did this to me. So he has a strong personal story. He's an NPP guy through and through, right? He worked in the road ministry, did commentary on television, so journalist, engineer, all right, TV presenter, and then spokesperson for President Kufuor in his 8 years. That's strong, right? So he's quite good with the media, and he's an engineer. People say, look, China has a lot of engineers. You've got engineers in the vice presidency. Engineers are very structured in the way they think. Kwabena Agyapong has worked in the Ghana Institution of Engineering, so he's actually an engineer. All right? Strong personal brand, track record in party. Even though he lost presidential, he campaigns for whoever wins. 2012, he became general secretary, all the problems he faced, came back to campaign, even 2020 campaigned again. So his party credentials are there, speaks very well. He's also an Ashanti, right? So he answers the Ashanti question, but he doesn't bring... The only problem, though, is that, you know, some of the things he said about Bawumia when he was running for this latest race, like, he can come back to haunt him, all right? So how are you going to run in with somebody you thought could not lead? Or you thought you were better than whatever? And then troubled passed, he and Afoko were removed. He's made the case that was completely offside. So he's come out more forcefully to speak about that. So some could say bringing him in could be sort of trying to bring a united front. But some can use that against him. All right? But it's an interesting and exciting prospect for somebody whose name just came up recently. He's exciting a lot of people. And one of the things I always say is that if you put these candidates together in a debate, I think he would win because of the way he will win most debates. Not because he shouts, but he's solid in the way he speaks. So we don't know what Bawumia will do with him. It could be an interesting decision, all right? Because of all the things he's done, media, engineering, and party administration, and all of that. So Kwabena Agyapong is a pretty interesting choice. Okay? Now, let me move to this guy. Now, this gentleman, so if you ask me 4 years ago, I'll say this guy is the leading MP. In fact, of all the Ashanti MPs, he's like the class prefect. But I think he's been struggling for the past couple of years. You know, there's a big demonstration in Suame. People were throwing ice water at him. They had to actually hide him somewhere. You know, because like people are tired of him. So he didn't even go for MP anymore because he probably would have lost. Okay. Now that's troubling because if you want somebody who's been MP for over 24 years, you would think that they would give him a bit more respect than that. He's the majority leader, but somehow there's a feeling that his stock has fallen. Some people think that when the people revolted in Parliament against Ken Ofori-Atta, I think they feel Jubilee House blamed him for some of that as the majority leader who couldn't control his people. And mind you, when Ken didn't come to read the budget, he read the budget in, I think, one of the years when Ken wasn't well. So some people feel like he undermined Ken. We are not really sure. But for a non-lawyer to lead the MPP in Parliament, he's quite good. He actually is a planner. All right, I listened to him recently speaking to some civil society people, and his sense of political issues is very strong. He was explaining our constitution, where we've come from, the changes we need to make to solve up. I mean, the guy is solid. For somebody who's not a lawyer, his explanation of the constitution was very serious. Right? So, but for some reason, when you mention his name, people are like, oh, this guy, we don't think so. Some think he can be a compromise candidate. Because the Napo Educhum thing seems to be very strong. So why don't you bring a third person who will then, I don't know, sue me. He has strong political experience. He's probably the most experienced of all of this. Now, the other point you need to know is Dr. Bawumia himself, even though he's been MPP for 16 years, there are people like this guy who are more experienced in MPP, who are more steeped in MPP than he is. I remember when they invited... usually when the MPP goes to meet important people, he always goes with them. He's a leader of the MPP. He's one of the leaders of the party. So if you want a more experienced person than the vice president to be his vice, he'll be the guy you choose. You cannot say that Napo Educhum is more experienced than Bawumia. You can't say that necessarily. All right, because Bawumia's work as vice president is a very strong work. Vice president is a big job. But you can say that this guy is more experienced than Bawumia, and nobody will argue with you. You get it? Because to lead parliament for 24 years is a serious thing to do. All right? He's a planner. He's also from the Ashanti region. And then there's the whole conversation about his parliamentary knowledge. All right? His parliamentary knowledge and what that will do. But the question, though, is that if the guy is not popular in his own constituency, really, what does it bring? You know? And you want freshness on the ticket. Is he the fresh guy you want? Because he's been there for such a long time. So it's a question of experience versus freshness. What do you have? All right. When we come back, I'm going to do a brief thing on the religion question, because we'll do a full-up on the religion issue. But the reason the religion question comes up is, of course, Bawumia is the first Muslim to be on the ticket of a leading party. All right? And even though Ghanaians have not had to vote on religion yet, it's come up in the conversations. And a name that has come up as a possible running mate is what is disconcerting some and exciting some. We'll talk about that when we return. Stay with us. So we're still on the point of view. Tonight, we're looking at the two leading parties and who their flag bearers will choose as their running mates. NDC, John Mahama, MPP, Mahmoud Bawumia. For the MPP, these are the contenders, the front runner. This name came up this week, Apostle Professor Opoku Onyina. Now, this is an interesting name. Why? Let me just show you something quickly. So the religion question has not really been broached at an election in Ghana properly. Now, 2021 census, we broke down the Christian faith into its component parts and compared to other groups. So Pentecostal charismatics are 32%, right? That's more than all of Islam. And this is just one sect. Then you add Protestants, 17%. So this is Methodist, Presby, Lutheran. Methodist, Presby, Lutheran, and AME, Zion. And those are the Protestants. EP as well. Other Christian. So this will probably include Jehovah's Witnesses. It would include other Christian groups, which are non-Pentecostal. So SDA will be part of this. Now the Catholic is 10%. Other religion 5%. Traditional 3%. No religion 10%. So this is 20%. Now the other point is that Church of Pentecost has about 3.2 million people. So think about it. Ghana has 32 million. Church of Pentecost is like 3.2 million. So about 10%. Or is it? Yeah. Quite a lot of them. Over 3 million or almost 3 million. Church of Pentecost, a lot. So a lot of this is Pentecost, Assemblies of God, the Lord Pentecostal Church, and all the charismatic churches. Action Central, Royal House, Ajinasari, Victory Bible Church. All of those guys are here. And all the Owusu Bempa, Obinim, they're all inside. Right? But the biggest, of course, Lighthouse is also there. But the biggest is Church of Pentecost. They are probably the fastest growing church in Ghana. So this gentleman is a former chairman of the church. Took over from Ntumi. Credited for for reforming the church. This whole idea of, they call it PIWC, he brought it. So I'm a very astute family of intellectual theologists. He has a brother called Waye Onyina. There are a lot of Onyinas. Very respected guy. And somehow his name keeps popping up as a potential running mate because there's a feeling that there are some Christian groups who will oppose a Bawumia candidature. And therefore, the way to balance that ticket is to bring not just a Christian, but a Christian leader. Now, there's a counterpoint to this. If you look at Nigeria, Buhari's running mate was Professor Yemi Oshibanjo, who's a pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. Right? So a lot of people felt that, and Redeemed is the biggest church in Nigeria. Redeemed is a bit like Pentecost. And Oshibanjo was a pastor in that church. So by bringing Oshibanjo, a lot of the Yoruba voters who were confused about whether to vote for Buhari or not were convinced by the Yemi. All right? So that's why his name has come up. And that's why you have the posting that, what's his name? The MP for Adreji did. But there's a view that, look, if you put a man of God who's not a politician on the ticket, you are too desperate. It's like you're admitting that you know that there's a problem with the Muslim candidate. Therefore, you're going to bring a strong... So it's some way, you know. And the other thing is that Church of Pentecost is not monolithic. Every church has people in NDC and NPP. So what will it do? Okay? So it's a very interesting point. Of course, I don't know why Frank Anodo Prayer is saying this, whether his prayer and wish is for them to pair or whether he's for... I don't know what he's doing there. But to the extent that during the national cathedral discussion, he came out strongly to defend the government position on their approach to the cathedral, because Dag Heward-Mills criticized the approach, the cost, and he wrote a very strong letter telling Dag that you don't have all the wisdom in the world, so please stay where you want to stay. And people are like, wow, a man of God stand up for the NPP like that, that's serious for the government. All right. Now, he himself has come out to say, he made a post, I don't know if you have the post, he made a post which some people have sought to construe to good. The Lord has a reason for creating me. Burying my talent and making it redundant is doing a disservice to my family, my church, my nation, and the world. Look at the flow of the facts. If I fail to speak, to work, to contribute, I allow the bad minority to rule and dictate. Keynote, to rule and dictate. Often the silence of the majority or a good one helps the noisy minority destroy society or even rule. For my script on words of wisdom. Now, he came out to say, look, this is not what I was talking about, right? When you read this, go back. When you read this thing that I just read, go back to the thing. When you read what I just read, it's like, hey, is the guy saying he wants to run for president because somebody has made a post, you know? But if you go to the next post, then he's saying, look, guys, take it easy, man. I coined my last post when we, the church, adopted the theme, being a good steward of God in my generation, in 2015. I examined the man who received 1 talent and hid it in the ground. I then wrote, the Lord has a reason for it. So he quoted the whole thing again. All right. Then he says, it has many lessons. Last night I was looking for a quote that touched my heart on preaching to post it. As I could not find it and stumbled on this, I posted it again. So he posted a 2015 post again. It has nothing to do with what is going on. Because, hey, Apostle, are you coming to take over as running mate? Perhaps it has come at the wrong time. Timing is important. I still keep my head and place Christ first in whatever I do. So he's saying, guys, I didn't post this because I want to be running mate for Bawumia. But I did post it in 2015 and I posted it again 2 days ago. So, but he hasn't also said he doesn't want to be running mate. He could have said, by the way, all the things people are saying, but he just said, you know what? It has nothing to do with what is going on now. It has come at the wrong time. So we will still wait. We have time. As for us, we have time, you know. If I'm going to get his book and read it again, he has a very good book that he wrote on church history and theology. You know, so he is the wild card. We don't know whether Bawumia will pick him. And if he does, what it will mean for the Christian vote, Church of Pentecost vote. Is there anything as a Christian vote at all? Because most of the churches, they have been divided anyway. Is there a Christian vote? Maybe this election will test that. We don't know. But he came out to clarify that this post was made in 2015. So be careful what you post. And if you are reposting, particularly, be careful what you repost. And the time you repost it. Because nipa is bad. All right. So that's Apostle Opokonyina. Look, we suspect the NDC will name their running mate before the NPP. And to the extent that Bawumia was named in August of 2008, he has a lot of time to choose who he wants to choose. So the big question is the NDC one. And on the NDC, we are none the wiser because the way Mahama operates, nobody knows what is in his head. And that's the issue. No, nobody knows. Even the people who work with Mahama say, the guy, we don't know what is in his head. So we don't know. We've just given you the name so you can think. If it doesn't come from any of this, it means that we don't know our work. It will come from this one of these people by all means. If it doesn't, it means Mahama is bad. But we'll leave it here for now. Thank you for watching tonight's edition of The Point of View, an editorial on the potential running mate. Send us a message. Let's hear from you on who you think. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.